purchase these things, they're still incredibly good value. And of course, if you're a store owner, anybody who wants to flip Pokemon, sell them, have access to a wholesaler or anything, you know, then you can get them to $11 in bulk, or maybe $12 if you just want to buy a few of them. And at $11, if you're a store, even if you have to pay an employee to do the labor to break these items down, let's say you pay $11. Let's say the promo card's $1. That means your cost basis is $10. Even if you get for the Mew and for both the promo and the oversized promo, even if you only get $3 for the oversized and regular, I think that's realistic. That means you're at $7 for the 4 boosters. So you're probably what, $175-ish a booster? So if you're gonna break down 200 of these and do singles, you can definitely turn a nice profit. Again, like you guys have been hearing me hype onto this stuff, I'm involved with the Pokemon because the market is trending in that direction. At the end of the day, you know, if the market is pulling you, if the market tells you a certain way, you can go against it all you want, but the market's going to do what it's going to do. And to me, that's something that you can kind of tread against it, but you really need to recognize what the people want, what the players are drifting towards, and what the industry, what's working. So, this is Rudy with Alpha Investments. A very simple video. Like I said, I just wanted to point out, I did overbuy this particular one. You know, eventually I'll do the Dragonite and Charizard and the other ones. Like I said, you only get another Pokemon video about 8 more days from now, but I did overbuy this particular set. As far as long-term investing, I think these I'm actually going to be breaking down and selling. I don't have a lot of confidence, mostly because of the promo and the 4. You know, it has the variety of 4-packs at least, but I don't have a lot of confidence in these 4 particular sets for long-term value. I know in 5-10 years from now, every out-of-print Pokemon set seems to do good, but the thing that bothers me is 5-10 years ago, everybody said the exact same thing about all the Magic sets, about all the Magic boxes, all the Magic booster boxes. And it feels like, it's like Pokemon's going through a Magic went through maybe 5 years ago. It's almost like they're slightly behind the curve, and it's kind of neat to look back and kind of just follow that difference on what's going through right now. And I don't know if it's going to completely mimic it, because the only people who can make it mimic it is pretty much the people who run Pokemon. It's like Wizards. They're the only ones that can destroy Magic is Wizards themselves. So it's interesting to watch from behind kind of what Pokemon's doing with the massive success they're having, and how the difference and how they're handling it, and all the things they're doing different besides from Yu-Gi-Oh! To Force of Will and Magic. They are taking their own direction. They aren't copying anybody else. And that is what's the most intriguing thing to me. Pokemon does not want to copy Magic the Gathering. Pokemon's not trying to copy Force of Will. They're trying to copy themselves, and they seem to be listening to the player base. So this is Rudy with Alpha Investments. Remember, right now, this is the hot stuff. This is the trending. I caution anybody buying or investing in Mewtwo boxes. I don't think these are going to be the cream of the crop as far as investments go. But at the end of the day, you know, if you can get a good enough cost basis on it in a long enough time frame, I do believe all of these type of products will go up in value. Every local store, any local game store, must turn over this inventory. And Pokemon this time next year is not going to be distributing more Mewtwo EX boxes. They're not going to be distributing any of the EX boxes from this particular series, any of the 5 of them. So in the big picture, as time goes on, it will be very, very interesting to see how these type of things unfold, because all the stores I know who order these and get so many of them in, all they do is break them all down. They trash all the product, put all the boosters in a pile, the promos in a pile, sell all the codes online, and they just turn a quick profit. So in other words, they're slaughtering the supply every day that goes by. They just wipe out the supply, wipe it out. So it makes you really, really wonder. Yes, it's a larger item that takes up larger storage space. And again, the Mewtwo one compared to the other ones isn't the best, but what is going to happen? What's going to happen if Pokemon cools? Because nothing can go straight up forever. Look at Wizards. They experienced tremendous growth in 2012 and 13, 14, 15, and now they're like, whee! And now they're just stalling. And now they're kind of losing some ground. As they slowly tick back down, I'm not saying Pokemon's going to go down, but they will cool off. It's inevitable. It is physically impossible for anything to continue on a parabolic, that kind of course. You can't do it. You cannot have continuous exponential growth. You must come back to Earth at some point in time. Your growth rate cannot sustain double digit for infinity. It just doesn't happen that way. So, Pokemon's doing a very good job managing the extreme success. large products like this that are bulky, take up space, stores don't want to keep them. I still stand by to everybody. I know a lot of people are disagreeing with me. I still really do believe these things are going to have a really weird niche market for the future of different people who want to collect and have, one of each of these things, one of each different sets that no longer are going to be available. I know it's just cardboard. Half these boxes are considered kind of empty, but I really, really do believe this is a market for it. But in the meantime, the trend is definitely my friend, and I'm going to ride that shit to the end. This is Rudy with Alpha. You guys have a great day.
So I wanted to make this video covering what we know thus far about the Dragon Ball Multiverse or Dragon Ball Omniverse, that is the 12 universes that the Omni King currently rules over, and make everything crystal clear for everybody before we go on to the next big arc, as I am presuming that we're going to be visiting more of these universes as Dragon Ball Super unfolds. In the meantime, let's go over everything you need to know about the 12 universes of Dragon Ball. I can't really speak for all of you, but I know that when I watched Battle of Gods for the first time, and I heard Beerus say that there are more than just one universe, that there's actually 12 of them, I was mind-boggled, and I had a feeling right then and there that at some point we were going to get a sequel of movies, I thought back then, that would cover this, but we did end up getting a sequel that didn't really cover it, Resurrection F, and then we got, of course, Dragon Ball Super, which is really expounding upon this. So let's go ahead and cover what we know so far. What we know, based on the explanation given to us in Dragon Ball Super, is that at one point there were 18 universes. Now, that is something that I made a mistake on in the last video talking about the gods. I said there were 16 on accident. I actually meant to say 18. There were originally 18 universes governed by the Omni King, and the Omni King destroyed 6 of these universes, leaving only 12. Now, it's not made clear as far as why he destroyed them. I think they just said he was irritated or something like that, but we actually don't know the reason behind it. But we actually did witness him doing a very similar feat in Dragon Ball Super Episode 67 when he wiped away that Trunks future that Zamasu had poisoned, or at least part of that future. So something similar may have happened in those universes, but we really don't know. What we do know, as explained by Whis, is that the universes come in pairs based upon the numbers adding up to the number 13, but there are only 12 universes. And some of the really bad speed subs that came out when Dragon Ball Super was first airing completely mistranslated this and said that there were 13 universes, but there are not, there's only 12. However, theoretically speaking, again, this is not really a confirmation of anything, we can presume the Omni King's realm exists outside of those universes. We don't know for certain if it does or it doesn't, so it's possible that he may have his own sort of exclusive universe. We don't really know for sure about that. So all of the universes are numbered and their pairs add up to 13. 1 and 12, 2 and 11, 3 and 10, and so on and so forth until we get to Universe 6 and 7. Universe 7 is where the vast majority of the Dragon Ball story takes place. This is, of course, the universe that is governed by the God of Destruction, Beerus, and, of course, his angel Whis, and thus Universe 6 is governed by the siblings of Beerus and Whis when it comes to that level of hierarchy, which is Vados and Champa. And even though we were introduced to Vados and Whis' father, the Daishinkan, I wonder if we're ever going to meet Beerus and Champa's father. That's interesting. We still don't know much about their origins or where they come from. And again, one of the problems with making these videos is that we really don't have enough information about the history of these characters or how old these universes actually are. We can presume that they are, of course, very, very old. And the one other thing that Universe 6 and 7 do share is that they are twin universes, but they're not identical twins, but they do share the Super Dragon Balls created by Zarama. And based upon the future Trunks arc, we can presume that these two universes are the only ones that have Super Dragon Balls, because when Zamasu was inquiring about them, he went to go find the Super Dragon Ball. So that means that Universe 10, where he's from, might not have them and probably doesn't. Why would he go after another universe's Dragon Balls? That tells me that there's no other Dragon Balls, at least no other Super Dragon Balls in any other universe. But again, Toriyama could just pull something out of his ass, and who knows? I'm only giving you what we know so far. Now, going back to what I said earlier about Universe 6 and 7 being twins, they are not identical twins. They are twins in theory and in origin only. So a lot of people were speculating that there is a Universe 6 equivalent of a Goku or a Vegeta, or pretty much people presume that Universe 6 has equivalents of every single person, every single living being in Universe 7, and that's simply not the case. Frost and Frieza obviously are one good example, but that's literally the only example we can come up with outside of course, the gods. The reason why there cannot be a Universe 6 equivalent of Goku and Vegeta comes down to simple biology. Goku and Vegeta were both born on planet Vegeta. Planet Vegeta was inhabited by the Saiyans after they left the Universe 7 equivalent of planet Sadal. So in Universe 6's, I guess, history, the Saiyans never left planet Sadal. So think of it in the terms of like an alternate timeline or an alternate continuity or a butterfly effect. If the Saiyans never left Sadal, that changes drastically the history of the entire race. They evolved without Tails, and as a result of these changes in what happened and the different characteristics of them, we don't even know if there's a Universe 6 version of King Vegeta and Bardock, and if there's no King Vegeta and Bardock, how can there be a Goku and Vegeta? That family lineage may not even exist in Universe 6. So that idea of there being a Universe 6 Goku and Vegeta is out the window unless, of course, Toriyama pulls it out of his ass. Who knows? Super's not over yet. Now, as I stated in my previous video, Universe 7 is divided up into 4 quadrants, each governed by a different Kai. That's how it is in Universe 7. We know that the Kais exist in other universes like 6 and 10, but what we don't know is how the government of the Kais works in those other universes. We haven't actually seen these characters yet, but we know for a fact they exist because in future Trunks' timeline, Goku Black went on a rampage and killed all of the Supreme Kais of all 12 universes, and thus, because of their connection to the gods of destruction, retroactively disposed of all the gods of destruction because of their life link with the gods of creation, the Supreme Kais, the Kaioshin, which was also revealed to us in Dragon Ball Super. Also, we found out that because of that, the angels like Whis and Vados were stuck without a god of destruction. So the bottom line is that we do know that the god hierarchy is the same across all 12 universes, but we don't know how many Kais there actually are per universe, or how many quadrants each universe actually has. We can presume it's the same, but we don't know for sure. And the last big reveal that Super gave us recently about the 12 universes is that if you travel through time and create alternate timelines, all 12 universes exist in these alternate timelines, not just in the universe that you happen to exist in when you travel through time. So when Trunks went to the past and created the new timeline, he created 12 more universes in his timeline. So the timelines exist outside of the Dragon Ball multiverse, so to speak. But of course, that begs the question, is there a being that governs over the timelines? Well, in the video games, the Supreme Kai of Time, but she is not in the manga or in the anime of Dragon Ball, so we really can't count her in this discussion. So I hope that clarified everything. The only real question I have left to ask is, when Zeno destroyed those other universes, how were they linked back then? Was Universe 1 linked with 18 and 2 with 17? Or was 18 linked with 13? Like, I don't understand that concept, and it's kind of a weird thing, but maybe one day we'll get an explanation. I highly doubt it. Anyways, thank you again for watching my video. Subscribe if you like the content here. I got more coming. Thank you for your constant support of the channel. Like it if you like it. Subscribe if you haven't. Talk to you guys later. Arale Norimaki is set to make a return in an upcoming episode of Dragon Ball Super, and many folks have asked, who is Arale and why should we care? Well, on this video, I'll tell you. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, share this video out to the world, and I thank you very much for your support. Before Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama was already one of the most famous manga artists in Japan and was already a multimillionaire because of the success of Dragon Ball's predecessor, which was Dr. Slump. Arale Norimaki is the main character of Dr. Slump. Dr. Slump is a story about a scientist named Senbei Norimaki, also known as Dr. Slump, who is a bit of a genius in the world but also kind of lacks common sense and likes to spend a lot of time making wacky inventions. And of course his wackiest one would end up being Arale. Arale is essentially Senbei's android, and although she has the appearance of a small girl, she actually is indeed not human. Dr. Slump follows the story of the life of Senbei and Arale and the wacky characters that they meet, Senbei's wacky inventions, and their wacky adventures. Now, when it comes to Dr. Slump and how it relates to Dragon Ball, one must always look at it from a Japanese perspective. Although Dr. Slump was indeed serialized as a manga, and there are actually not one, but two anime adaptations, one in the 80s and one in the 90s, in North America, as well as the majority of the West, we didn't actually get an English dub, with the exception of a very obscure Harmony Gold dub. Funimation has never dubbed the series, and for reasons I'll get into in a later video, may never do it. However, you have to understand that Dr. Slump is incredibly popular in Japan, and was the series that pretty much put Toriyama on the map, so to speak. And before Goku became the poster boy for Bird Studios and Toriyama, Arale was there first. Now, unfortunately, because of a lack of licensing in this country, most Dragon Ball fans in the West have no idea about Arale's stories and are most familiar with Arale from her crossover in Dragon Ball during the Red Ribbon Army saga in the General Blue portion. What happens is that General Blue is being chased by Goku and ends up landing in a place called Penguin Village. Penguin Village is the primary locale for Dr. Slump and the home of Arale and Senbei. Arale runs into Goku and General Blue chases as they go hunting for the Dragon Balls, which would lead to a fight between Arale and General Blue, and Arale pretty much kicks his ass. Afterwards, Goku and Blue both departed Penguin Village, and this would be the last time that we would see Arale in Dragon Ball. These events were covered in Dragon Ball, manga chapters 80 to 83, and TV episodes 55 through 57. The one thing that Dragon Ball fans need to be made aware of is that the world of Dr. Slump is not the exact same world of Dragon Ball. And if you try to actually make sense of this whole mini arc, it really doesn't make much sense. And you have to remember that the intention of Toriyama at the time was to create a fun little crossover for all the fans of Dr. Slump and a fun little interaction between Arale and Son Goku, Toriyama's old character and Toriyama's new main character. So you really should not take that crossover as being too serious. We never really see Arale again in Dragon Ball, but if you go by the Dr. Slump continuity, Arale would go on to marry Obochaman, and they raised a robot child together many years later. It should also be noted that Arale made a brief cameo in the third Dragon Ball theatrical movie, Mystical Adventure. Throughout the years, a lot of Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump fans have tried to essentially power scale Arale to see where she fits with the Dragon Ball characters. And the reality is that one must always remember that Dr. Slump was a comedy manga, and it's very, very difficult to use Dragon Ball power scaling in Dr. Slump. But if you were to do so, you would understand that Arale is really, really powerful. She can destroy the entire Earth with one punch. She can move planets around with her power. She can travel between Earth and Saturn in just seconds. And in the 1997 anime readaptation of Dr. Slump, there was a filler scene where Arale actually fights Goku in his Grade 8 form and grabs him by the tail and throws him around like nothing. So as a result of all of these incredible feats, a lot of Dragon Ball fans and Dr. Slump fans have actually believed that she may be able to destroy a number of your favorite Dragon Ball villains. So no matter which way you slice it, even though Dr. Slump's in a different continuity, her feats make her unbelievably powerful. Because this is just a Geek the Quickie, and it's a shorter video. I'm not going to go into the entire history or story of Dr. Slump. I will actually be doing a video in the future going into explicit detail about the history of Slump, as well as these characters a little bit more. But I do encourage all of you to go ahead and scour the internet and maybe even watch some clips of Slump or read some of the manga if you can get your hands on it, and learn a lot more about Arale. I really look forward to seeing what she's going to be doing in Dragon Ball Super, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty damn funny because Toriyama's damn good at writing comedy, and Dr. Slump was a comedy series and his huge hit before Dragon Ball. And I hope this video helped educate you guys, or maybe even help you remember about who Arale is and why it's such a big deal for her to come back in Dragon Ball Super, especially in Japan. It's a huge deal there, and of course, Dragon Ball is a Japanese show. That's who they cater to, and that's why she's back. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you down the road.
Metal spiders, destroy them. Deliver the gems of power to my altar.
Hello everyone, Kibler here, and today I wanted to talk a bit more about the mean streets of Gadgetzan cards that we have seen so far. We're supposed to be getting most of the cards, perhaps all the cards revealed pretty soon, but I wanted to jump into what we saw most recently from the Jade Lotus faction, the gang. Let's start first with a sort of holdout from last week. There was the Mana Geode, which was revealed over the course of the weekend, and this is an interesting card that has gotten kind of a lot of different perspectives on it. Some people seem to think that this card is going to be totally busted. Some other people seem to think that it's just not really that high impact card at all as a priest. And I'm kind of in the latter. I think that Mana Geode is kind of overrated by a lot of people. It's clearly a card that, if it gets going, can offer a ton of value and board presence for a single card. The problem is that you have to have a Mana Geode, which is a 2/3 for 2, attack a minion and survive, and then heal it before you get more than, well, just a 2/3 for 2. And then this card suffers from a lot of the same problems as Northshire Cleric. That's a card that used to be kind of a staple in priest decks and has now kind of fallen by the wayside in a lot of priest decks, with the exception occasionally of some of the more combo-oriented stuff with Wild Pyromancer and Circle Healing. And that doesn't really apply in quite the same way to Mana Geode. But if there were a world where there were a lot of small minions, like 2/1s for 1, things like that, where Northshire Cleric used to thrive, I think Mana Geode would do well. The problem is that there's lots of minions that trade favorably against Mana Geode, like Tunnel Trog or the Champion, and also matches up really poorly against Fire and War Axe. If you think about the sort of major decks, it doesn't really match up well against the minions in Shaman decks. It gets kind of outclassed pretty quickly and removed easily by Spirit Claws and by Lightning Bolt. Against Druid, there's nothing that it really attacks into and gets healed against. Against Warrior, it dies to War Axe. Against Aggressive Warrior, it dies to Champion. So it doesn't really fit anywhere where in the way that the metagame is really shaped up right now. So I think that there's maybe a world where Mana Geode is powerful, especially if it has support in the form of something like Felon's Chosen, but I don't think it's a card that's going to make a big splash when it enters the format with the release of Means Geode. Moving on to the neutral cards, let's just start with the Jade Lotus cards, the Jade Golem cards, at the top with Aya Blackpaw. Now, first of all, let's just talk a little bit about Jade Golems in general. Jade Golem is, a mechanic where when you summon a Jade Golem, the first one you summon in a game is a 1/1. The second one is a 2/2, 3/3, so on. And so this is a powerful effect when you're able to do a lot of it in an individual game, especially if you're able to start doing it early on, so you can, just keep making bigger things very quickly. With Aya Blackpaw, there's a couple of things going on here. One is you're getting multiple bodies for a single card. With the Battle Cry, you're getting often probably a 3/3, 4/4, maybe even bigger, along with the 5/3 for 6, which is not necessarily amazing in its own right, but the fact that it has the Death Rattle as well means that this is particularly strong against board wipe effects. You force your opponent to deal with the 2 bodies, and if they do something like Hellfire or Twisting Nether or whatever else, you'll end up with an additional body that comes along when Aya Blackpaw dies. So I do think that this is likely to be a staple card in any Jade Golem focused deck. As to whether those decks are going to be highly competitive, that really remains to be seen for what other support the mechanic has. Speaking of other Jade Golem support, Jade Spirit is kind of like the basic Jade Golem generating minion, and this is, in its own right, not necessarily a particularly attractive and exciting card. You're not going to look at Jade Spirit and be like, ooh, I want to build a Jade Golem deck. By itself, you're not really getting a lot of stats for the cost, but if you do have enough other things that allow you to summon Jade Golems before you play your Jade Spirit on turn 4, you could potentially get pretty significant board value for the cost. So I think this may end up being kind of a cog in the wheel of the Jade Golem mechanic, but not really any kind of standout. And it's important to note that the Jade Golem mechanic is inherently very linear, so you're often going to just want to cram as much of the Jade Golem cards as you can in a single deck, simply because the more you have, the more powerful all of them are. That's kind of the thing that I don't really necessarily like about the mechanic. I do like that it's a mechanic that will encourage people to play different cards than they normally play in terms of just going for, the most efficient card stat-wise, or the best removal spells cost-wise, or whatever else, because you want to play more of the Jade Golem cards. But when the mechanic literally just makes you want to play with as much as possible, because everyone makes all the others that much more powerful, I think it's a little bit less interesting. I've seen some people comparing it to Cthulhu, and I think it's a bit different because most of the power you get from playing Cthulhu is the Cthulhu-enabled cards, the cards that get more powerful when your Cthulhu has 10 or more attack. And that's a lot different than just everything's better every time you play more things. You know, we haven't really seen successful Cthulhu decks that are just looking to make the biggest Cthulhu they can. They're usually looking to turn on Ancient Shield Bearer or Twin Emperors or whatever else, and then maybe, you know, eventually kill you with the Cthulhu, but it's mostly about enabling those synergy cards. It's not really about just piling up as big a Cthulhu as possible. And, you know, that feels a little bit different with Jade Golems because every single one of them, you know, sort of linearly becomes more powerful as you play more of them, so you really have an incentive to just jam as much as you can into a deck. So I'll be curious to see what Jade Golem decks really end up looking like if they do make a splashy competitive play, but I'm concerned that they're just super, super linear and won't necessarily have a lot of interesting deck building decisions going on. Alright, moving on to the other neutral cards. These don't necessarily have quite the same obvious homes. Daring Reporter, I've heard some people talk about playing this in like mill decks because you play Daring Reporter and then play Collate Oracle, then your opponent will draw cards, your Daring Reporter will get bigger. I don't think that's going to really be how this card sees play. In fact, I don't really think this card will see play. It could be maybe used as an answer to decks that draw a lot of cards themselves, but the real key to fatigue decks, to mill decks, is the fact that, generally speaking, they mostly ignore the basic axis of interaction in the game, which is minion combat. You know, the reason that a deck like the Mill Rogue deck with Bran and Coldlight and Gang Up and whatever else is able to be powerful is because it looks to largely make most of what your opponent's deck is trying to do not matter. And once you put Daring Reporter in it, you know, all your opponent's removal cards end up being much more powerful than if your deck was just itself a bunch of removal, healing, and ways to force your opponent to draw cards and put more cards into your deck. So I don't really think this is going to have a home in that style of deck. I don't really think that that style of deck is really going to be particularly powerful regardless, but I don't think that this is something that's going to really find a place there. Next up we have Fight Promoter. This is a kind of interesting card. It's important to note that this card will trigger if it is itself pumped. If, for instance, by some of the Grimy Goon cards that can pump cards in your hand, it will enable you to effectively play this kind of as a pre-nerf Ancient of Lore, able to play it and just reload by drawing 2 cards with a sizable body. I don't think this is really necessarily going to see play outside of that. It's, I think, a little too situational to try to play this after you've already played another big minion. That's just really a lot to ask. But I do think that if there are enough cards that you can use to buff cards in your hand to pretty much guarantee that the Fight Promoter gets big enough, that this could be a good way for those decks to reload. So whether this card ends up seeing play, I think it depends a lot on exactly how many hand buff type cards